Hey guys, I moved out here to Mexico with only $1,500 left to my name, and not only did I survive, but I thrived.
So you guys may already know Jose from his YouTube channel. What is the channel?
Jose Arteaga lives in Mexico, or living in Mexico. I don't know, I've changed it a few times, but just look up Jose Arteaga, all right? You're gonna find me.
I'll have a link down below for that. But he is another YouTuber. We just met in person this morning for the first time. We've communicated online a few times. And I said, hey, I am coming to Merida, where he lives. Let's do some videos together, and he agreed. So we're gonna do a walk and talk video. There's actually another video where Jose is interviewing me. We're walking that way. Now we're walking this way. So let's get walking.
Yeah. And in fact, to give some of the audience a little context, we're out here in, again, Merida, Yucatan. We're on Paseo Montejo, which is, one of the main avenues out here. You definitely got to come out here and check it out if you're visiting the area. They actually close off the roads on Sunday, so people can ride their bicycles and do all their stuff out here, Family Sunday, as they do in La Paz, right, and other parts of Mexico.
I was wondering if they closed down the streets. Is it just this street, or they closed down more?
Many years ago when I moved out here, they closed off both streets, but now they just close off one street.
One lane?
Yeah,
okay.
so they allow the traffic on the other street. But they also close all the streets down into El Centro and other parts of the city. So basically, you can ride your bike with your family, the kids, the dogs, whatever, and, take it all through Paseo Montejo, and then also go through the city. Again, you guys can watch my videos so you can see what the city looks like, what Paseo Montejo looks like, what it looks like on a bicycle and all that other stuff. But yeah, long story short, this is a very bikeable city.
Yes.
Yeah. Is La Paz also very bikeable?
La Paz, you can go down the Malecon, and that is a very good, that's like 3 miles long. The rest of the city is okay bikeable.
Okay.
There's some bike lanes and whatnot, but you don't see a lot of people biking in La Paz.
Okay.
So that's something that I wish that we had, and we don't have the close down the streets on Sunday like here or Guadalajara, or there's a number of other places that have that, and I think it's just super cool to have the streets closed down on Sundays. Let's talk more about you and Merida, and we're going to get into the budget and that $1,500 that we started with, but let's talk about why you're here in Merida.
I got a long story, but I'm going to try and make it as short as possible for you guys here. Yeah, I was living in LA, living, the dream out there, and then I came upon hard times, and I had to find a place to live. I cannot find a place to live suitable enough and quick enough because I only had like a 3-week time span to find a new place to live in Los Angeles. And I only had 2 choices. I'm going to live in Skid Row or live out of my car. And I was not going to do either one of those. So I said, all right, Jose, think. Put on your thinking cap and, what other solutions you got out there? And so I said, bueno, hablo español, because I'm Cuban, so I speak Spanish. I got a lot of skills to my name. I can, edit movies. I can, cook. I can do a bunch of things. And I had to start from the bottom up again. So I said, well, you know what? Why not move to a Latin American country since you speak Spanish? So I started doing some research. And long story short, I found Merida, Yucatan, which 7 years ago, Merida, Yucatan was actually the most affordable place in all of Mexico. Not today. Today is one of the most expensive places in all of Mexico, but that's another story for another day. By the way, I can still live out here on my budget, okay? So on $1,000, $1,500 a month, all right? Even though it's still one of the most expensive cities in Mexico. But with that said, that's basically kind of what brought me out here. Now, when I came out here, I was pleasantly surprised, by Merida, by the Yucatan, by this whole area, because originally I'm from Miami, I'm from Florida, and this is very, very similar. The weather's similar, the culture's similar, the food is similar, so many things are similar. And so basically after just a few hours, a few days out here, I was like, man, this is home. This is just, there's more Mexicans out here than Miami. But other than that, it was very, very similar to what I was used to. Like I said, the food, the culture, the weather, all these things really hit home for me. And well, long story short, I started making YouTube videos, talking about my experience of me moving out here, living out here, coming out here with basically nothing, surviving, thriving, doing the whole thing. And well, I made a whole YouTube channel out of it. And that's the YouTube channel that you're going to be, watching Brighton on later, once we publish the videos. But yeah, long story short, my channel was basically showing people how I did it. And in turn, I helped a lot of people in the audience do it themselves as well, because everybody has different, resources, in order to make their transition easier, better, whether it's skills or language or money or whatever it is. And so in my case, I didn't have much money, but I had skills and I had all these other things that played in my favor. And so that's the thing, at least in my channel, I try to help people with that, because We're all different out there. And so I've already been here 7 years. I've survived. I've thrived. I've done so much out here, to the point where the last thing I got to do is buy a house. You know, that's the next thing on the docket. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's been very rewarding to be able to help so many of you guys out there and share my story with so many of you guys, you know, to the point where, look at me now, you know, my friend Brighton came to visit me all the way from La Paz, you know, just to, you know, do a video with me. Well, I know that's not the reason. I know you guys came out here for other things, but still, you know what I mean? And yeah, and it's I don't know, it just makes me feel good that I get to help out so many of you guys out there in the audience.
Yeah, it is really great, that whole feeling. I met a subscriber this morning at coffee. Matt was sitting next to me, and he said, I recognize that hat. So, and thank you for wearing your hat today. So we got hats today, matching hats. Yeah, it's great to see people that have been able to do it, and we have helped them make it happen. We've helped you guys make it happen. So many people follow through and make that move to Mexico. Matt's doing part-time right now. He's just buying his second house, actually, something in Centro, a historic area. So I'm staying in Centro with Amy from Destination Retirement. There'll be a video with her too. I think it'll be up here if it's ready. Yeah, Centro is really just beautiful. Tell us a little bit about Merida, like, because it's old.
Yes. So Merida, basically, from my understanding, it's over 500 years old. The Spanish, you know, they landed here, and there was a big connection between this region of Mexico and Cuba and the Caribbean and the Spanish Empire. In fact, this city was one of the richest cities, if not the richest city in the world at one point, because out here they had this giant Henneken industry. And Henneken is basically like hemp. So like, you know, hemp for hemp rope. I know a lot of, you know, now these days we use plastics and polymers and all, you know, and all this other stuff. But at one point, the whole world ran on hemp and on Henneken, because that is basically the strongest material naturally that exists out there to do all kinds of things. And so basically during, you know, a long time, this area was extremely rich. In fact, Paseo Montejo, if you're walking around Paseo Montejo and you see some of these beautiful buildings,
look at this guy over here.
Beautiful architecture. All this was built during the time where there was all the money was here. You know, this area right here has a lot of cultural influences, very different than the rest of Mexico. When I visit other parts of Mexico, I'm like, oh, this is Mexico, the Mexico that we all know of on TV, or that we know of from you know, movies and things like that. Because the thing is that this part of Mexico is very different to the other parts of Mexico, which is for me, you know, something that was very inviting as a Floridian, as a Cuban, because I came out here and I was like, oh yeah, this is more, you know, what I'm used to, how I grew up, and just the vibe as well. You know, it's just more of a laid back vibe. In fact, Mexicans from other parts of Mexico, they'll come out here and they get frustrated because everything is so much slower. Everything is just so much, you know, the pace, you know, just a super slow, relaxed pace that a lot of people are not used to.
Yeah, and the food is different too. I've noticed the food here is much more, I think of it as Cuban. You know, just because my wife grew up in South Florida, and I feel like the food here is very similar to some of the stuff that she makes from back in her South Florida days. Yeah,
so as you guys know, all Mexicans eat beans, right? And depending on the part of Mexico you're in, depending on the bean that they eat here is the black bean, which is the one I grew up eating, the Cuban bean. And that was a surprise to me. They eat guayaba, which guava, you know, very, very, you know, it's everywhere. I even got a guava tree in my backyard. You know, the oranges, the roast pig, so many of these things, you know, are very,
had the roast pig last night.
Yeah, good, right?
Yes, very good.
Yeah, that's what we had at our wedding. I was like, I remember when I first had it, I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite. And when I got married to Christian, I was like, yeah, that's what I want at the wedding. I want cochinita.
You know, it's interesting. We have the same thing here, is that I had roast pork at our wedding. We had a Cuban.
Oh, awesome.
We got married in Key West, so we had Cuban food catered, and it was the cheapest wedding food ever, and it was the best wedding food ever, too.
Yeah. So, you already know. Oh, sorry.
Let's go.
All right.
Oh.
Some very nice people here.
Yep.
Letting us cross. But yeah, you know, to me, you know, after when I first got here, I just didn't know any better. You know, I didn't know too much about Mexico. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know too much about this region. I didn't know anything at all. But as I was living here and I started educating myself, you know, talking to the locals, you know, again, like I said, I met my wife, you know, I met other people out here. It's like, oh, I started to really realize how different it is. And then also started to realize, oh, Mexico's a huge country, just like the USA, which has different states, and things are going to be different in Portland as in Miami,
Yep.
as in New York, as in Chicago, as in
In LA.
Colorado.
Yep.
And it's the same thing here. So this region would be very akin to like the southern region of the USA.
Yep.
You know, like the South. And so, for example, Merida is not too far from Cancun. Cancun would be more like Miami or Cabo,
Yeah.
in your case, right? You know, a little, you know, out there. But then when you come to Merida, you know, Merida is more like just chill. It's kind of like West Palm or La Paz, you know, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chill out here. Because I come from Miami, I didn't want nothing to do with Cancun. This is what I want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, you know, being able to live in this kind of environment. And this is why, again, even as we travel throughout Mexico, I always end up coming here. I know a lot of people don't like the heat, but to me, I prefer the heat. You know, right now during the winter, we were dipping down to 65 degrees, and you know, me and my wife were freezing our butts off. You know, which is 65 is nothing. You know, for a lot of people out there.
Right. It's supposed to be 95 degrees today here.
Yeah.
We're in mid-February. So, yeah, it gets hot and it's humid here. And that's something in La Paz, it does not get this humid. But it's also 5 times bigger than La Paz, where I'm from.
Okay.
So it's just a much bigger city, over 1 million people in this city.
And it's growing. It's oh my God, this whole region is growing immensely. It's pretty insane. Because
Yep.
just in the time that I've been here, the growth in the last 7 years has been phenomenal. It's been insane. Again, some people look at it as a bad thing. Some people look at it as a good thing. I look at it as a good thing because, again, being here 7 years ago, yeah, it was nice. It was great. But now it's better. Now it's just
Yep.
so much better. The infrastructure's better. You have access to many more things. Now it's a real city, I feel. You know,
Yep.
now it's really growing.
I'm going to hop on the Mayan train tomorrow. I'm a big train fan. Some people have said, hey, you're going to Playa del Carmen. Why not just take the bus? Because the bus is actually easier and cheaper. But I'm hopping on the train. That video will be up here too if I've got that one ready. Let's talk about you now some more. So we've got Merida is the place to live here. Now, what about you? You started with $1,500 in your pocket. What are you paying for rent?
So my rent, you know, at the moment is 6,000 pesos, which is roughly $300 US, okay?
And what do you get for that?
Oh, I get a 2-bedroom house, you know, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a giant backyard, a giant front yard, you know, plenty of room, you know, for a garden, plenty of room for Christian to have her art studio because she's an artist, plenty of room for me to have an office, to have a big kitchen. You know, I like to cook. I have a big kitchen, so it buys a lot. You know what I mean? Like back home, I'd be in the USA or Miami, for example, I'd be paying minimum $2,000 for that. And I'm out here, I'm paying, what did I say, 300?
300
you know?
bucks, yep.
Yeah, 300 bucks. And then, you know, all the other expenses, you know, whether it's the water bill, the light bill, the cell phone, all these other things, you know, they come out to around 1,000 to 1,500 a month. Again, depending on the month, depending on we have an emergency or not. In fact, I have a very recent video on cost of living, you know, my cost of living, all right? So you guys can get a better idea on that. Again, it's not to say that that's going to be your cost of living, but you guys can get an idea as to how I do it out here and how you might be able to do it out here. Yeah, my cost of living here is nothing. It's minimal compared to what it would be in the USA. Because look, for example, the highest bill, the highest costing thing that I have here in Merida, aside from rent, is the light bill. The food bill and the light bill. But really, you know, we're just talking about like utilities here now. The light bill, because again, it's very, very hot. And you're going to have the air conditioner on all the time. And look, and right now, you know, we're at the end of winter. You know, we're hitting 95 with like 35% humidity. This is still nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even have the AC on until I go to sleep. Hey, how's it going? All right.
This is the beauty of being a YouTuber in Mexico, is everyone recognizes you on the street, especially if you're from the town.
Yeah. So anyway,
So
shout out
light
to
bill.
everyone out there.
Yes. And we love it when you guys say hi, even when we're filming a video. So it's a lot of fun.
That's right. But yeah, but long story short, you know, the light bill, and then, you know, the light bill really only gets expensive during the summer, you know, because obviously that's when you're using the AC a lot. But in a region like this, I don't know about how it is in La Paz, but in a region like here, where it gets very hot, 6 months out of the year, they subsidize. The government subsidizes, same thing. They subsidize your light bill. So even though you're running the AC on, you know, the majority of the day, they subsidize a good portion of that. And long story short, you know what I mean? Like right now during the winter, they don't subsidize it. So even if I have it on at night to go to sleep, you know, yeah, I'm going to be paying probably a heftier bill than I might even during the summer. Anyways, with all that being said, the light bill for me personally is like around 50 bucks to 100 a month, which again, it might be expensive for some of you guys out there. But again, when retrospect, you know, when you're looking at it, it's like, yeah, it's not that much. You know, my sister pays, you know, a lot more, you know, for her car insurance, you know, than than I do for, you know, running the AC on all day out here. So
actually, I just interviewed Craig yesterday,
Okay.
and he lives in a studio.
Okay.
And so it's a smaller place.
Yeah.
But his electric bill, he just showed me, it was sitting on his desk. It was like 450 pesos
Yeah.
for 2 months.
Yeah.
So that's like $10 a month. Of course, that was during the winter, so a little less AC need and much smaller place. But hey, he's also paying about $300, and he's in a studio though,
Yeah,
so he's
and he has
a little
everything else,
closer.
yeah, and everything's paid and it's furnished and
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So that's part of it. Is whether it's furnished. Was your place furnished or?
No, my place was not furnished. I had to furnish everything on my own. But when I first moved here, which again, not too far from here, like a couple blocks from here, I literally was paying like around $200 a month for, say, like a little townhouse. Some of you guys have seen it in my older videos, and it was all utilities included, except for my light bill. And for me, I did use the AC a little bit more, and I never got no 400 peso bill.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get 400 peso bills at my house now because I know how to manage the electricity a little better.
Yep.
But yeah, long story short, sometimes my electricity bill at the townhouse was more than my rent.
Yeah, definitely. Electricity can be a big thing in Mexico, and it's all the same utility all the way across Mexico, but the rates are all different. So it's all very complicated in terms of, like, if you don't use very much electricity, it is really, really inexpensive. But the more you use, the more it costs. The more it costs per kilowatt. So it's actually a very fair system.
And I don't think I completely answered the question. I know earlier you were asking me how I make my money and stuff like that.
Yeah, I want to know that. Yeah, how do you pay these bills now?
Yeah, how do I pay? Okay, so when I first moved here, again, I was still kind of starting out with YouTube, and so I wasn't not making any money from any YouTube advertising or any YouTube at all. I was making all my money from working online, and I was basically my own boss. Again, I made videos on how you can find work and do, online jobs and stuff like that. But at least in my case, I was always editing videos. I was always in that industry, ever since I was in LA. So when I came out here, basically, I was just still reaching out to the same people in LA, because I had all the connections. And or I would look out on Craigslist or places like that for new clients, and then long story short, I would just undercut everybody, because someone needed an editor, and the going rate would be like $500, and I'll be like, hey, I can do it for 100. All right, and look, here's my resume, or here's my my portfolio. And so yeah, long story short, I was always working. I was always working, and it wasn't until many years later that I started finally making money on YouTube, and then I just did that less and less until, well, now I very rarely do it. Now most of my money comes from either YouTube or consultations or, just little things, because again, I've been living here 7 years. So there's all kinds of things that I do. Sometimes I'll help a friend out, with this catering company, whatever, just trying to make ends meet, or make a little extra, a couple extra bucks or whatever. But long story short, you can do it like that too. Depending on what your skill sets are, depending on how willing you are to go out there and find some work and then find some, maybe even a new career. Look, I used to be a cook. I used to be a chef my whole life. And look what I do now. I make videos. So it can be done. You can make that transition. I know a lot of you guys out there always reach out. I'm sure you reach out to Brighton as well. I'm like, hey, I'm a mechanic, or I work with wood. How am I going to make a living down there? Listen, you got to get creative, all right? You got to figure it out. You know what I mean? You might be able to do what you do or not. But at the end of the day, there's tons of opportunities out here. You could do so many things out here, but it's really up to you. And this is just assuming you don't have any income, because some people already have income, when they come out here, whether it's a Social Security, a pension, right? Retirement. But there's a lot of people my age. In fact, how old are you? Because
so I'm 52.
52. Okay, so yeah, I'm 43. But when I came out here, I was in my late 30s. I'm still working age. I ain't got no retirement. I ain't got no money. I came out here with, I only had 1,500 left to my name. That's after I got my plane ticket and I got my Airbnb. But that's how much I had left to make it happen. And I was able to make it happen, But again, it took a lot of work, a lot of effort. It was very, very, very difficult. But, like I tell everybody out there, it would have been more difficult to stay in the USA. Simple as that. And so to me, it's like, hey man, no pain, no gain, right? You gotta put in that work. Those muscles aren't gonna build themselves.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, probably what's coming to mind for a number of people is, how does someone with $1,500 to their name get a immigrate here? I guess essentially, how do you get a residency permit? how do you stay beyond 6 months?
Okay, so well, in my case, this is again 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago, 6 years ago, I would say. Yeah, I was here on a tourist visa. When I came out here, I had no plan. I'm like, hey, I gotta escape the USA. I gotta get out of there. I'm not gonna be living in Skid Row. What am I gonna do? So I basically came out here, no real plan. But after my 6 months was up, now I had to figure something out.
Yep.
Yeah, and then another 6 months happened. So then before I knew it, I was here in Mexico, not illegally, irregularly, because, you know, I get corrected here. Because the reality is that it's not illegal for you not to be here without a visa per se. It's just you're irregular. What does that mean? You got to get regular. So eat some prunes. No, I'm sorry. I mean, no, you got to get regularized. So that means you got to get your paperwork. And look, long story short, I'm just trying to make this as short as possible. Back then, there was no option for me, you know, to get residency through through the traditional means of financial solvency. Again, I came out here with $1,500 to my name. That's, you know, I couldn't even afford to get in the door at a consulate, let alone, right?
Yeah, like right now, let's give some numbers for those who don't know it. It's like you got to have like $4,000 a month in income, or I want to say like $70,000 in the bank.
That's great.
That's kind of like the standard what you want for temporary residency to be able to stay beyond 6 months at a time. Regularized.
Yeah. By the way, we can keep walking, okay?
Okay, yeah, let's keep going a little bit.
But long story short, so back then I really didn't have much of a choice. And so I was offered, you know, by many people, it's like, hey, you're dating Christian. Have you asked her to marry you yet? In fact, how long have you guys been dating? Oh, we've been dating like 9 months. You haven't asked her to marry you yet? You know, because again, you're in Mexico, right? And so, yeah, long story short, I go to Christian. Hey, Christian, would it be okay? Would it be okay if, you know, we get married so you can help me with my papers and we can get all that going and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, of course I can help you, but only on one condition. We actually got to get married for real. And we actually got to, you know, consummate the relationship. I'm like, all right, let's go. You know what I mean? I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this hottie wants to get married to me. This is awesome. This is amazing. So yeah, long story short, I mean, that's kind of like how, you know, I got my papers. I was dating her. I asked her to marry me to get my papers. We got married. And well, you know, we just celebrated a 5-year anniversary. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely, thank you. Definitely, you know, working. Everything's awesome. But yeah, long story short, that's what I had to do. I didn't have much of a choice back then. But today, again, if I never would have gotten married to her and I would have stayed out here irregularly for years, eventually I would have qualified for the RNE program, which again, you've heard me talk to death about on my channel. And we can go through here. And I'm sure you've heard other channels and other people talking about the RNE program. And in the RNE program, I didn't have to, you know, you don't have to provide any kind of financial solvency. You just got to provide, you know, proof that you've been living in Mexico. You're in Mexico. And that's it.
And I got to say, there's ways to get around that even.
Sure,
so this is Mexico. So, I mean, reality is...
Legally, all legal, by the way. Yeah.
So you can make things happen.
Yeah.
But so there's an option for you to get into Mexico. Marriage is something I hadn't heard of people doing before, but yeah, it's definitely a thing. So, and I'm glad it's working out. I guess because you speak Spanish, it's probably a lot easier than people who don't. So.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. But like I said, you know, like, again, honestly, I've told my audience this story many times. When I did this with my wife, it was a business transaction. That's what we, you know, the plan. And it's a normal thing to do out here. Look, it happens in the U.S. as well. Yeah. But the thing is, in the U.S., if you try to get residency through marriage, you already know you got to move it. An agent, a government agent moves in with you, and he's just basically looking at everything. Out here in Mexico, it's not like that at all. In fact, when I went to go get my residency, they didn't even want my wife there. They're like, hey, why is your wife here? Oh, because it was during COVID. They're like, don't you know it's COVID?
No extra people in here.
Yeah, I mean, and then the second thing, when I went to get my permanent residency, you know, was already after COVID, and they were still like, why is she here? You know, blah, blah, blah. You know, what do you mean, why is she here? You know? So yeah, Mexico's a completely different country, and that's how I got my residency. But as you know, there's many ways, especially today, especially in today's world, many ways in which you can legally get your residency. And Mexico is not like the USA. You know, they're a lot more open. The bureaucracy, you know, might take a while. You know, it's slow. It's slow, really slow. But I mean, it's
flexible. There's a lot of flexibility. Actually, my friend Colin back in La Paz, he has an anchor baby, was what they would call them up in the United States. So him and his wife moved to Mexico before they had their baby. And so now their baby is born as a Mexican citizen, and they are going to do family reunification to get their citizenship so that they'll have citizenship in both the United States and Mexico. And with the way things are going up north, it's like having more flexibility is a good thing. So if you're thinking about moving to Mexico, go ahead and get that residency. It is a great thing to know that you can always come down to Mexico, and Mexico's not going to ask you to leave after 6 months. Mexico's not going to start changing the rules in terms of like, okay, when you're coming in, you're only going to get a week for vacation. Once you have your residency, you have the right to be in the country.
Yeah,
so,
and honestly, again, I get this asked a lot, you know, do I ever get asked, you know, by authority figures, you know, for my residency, for my legal status? No, not once in the 7 years that I've been here have they ever asked me for anything. In fact, the last time we were in Guadalajara, we were flying out of there. When I got on the plane, I realized, hey, not once did they ask me for my ID or my passport to get on the plane, just so you can see how relaxed things are. And look, I'm not saying this is the normal in all of Mexico, but compared to the USA, try getting on a plane without getting your
I know,
ID.
yeah, and I think I've done that, but actually last time I was in, I think I was flying through Mexico City, and they're actually, before I got on the plane, they were INEA agents were there checking to see.
Yeah, Mexico City is another animal. Yeah, Mexico City. Yeah. But I was talking about like in the U.S., you know, trying to even get past.
Exactly. You're not gonna get through anything. So, but it seems like the airports. I actually have another interview I did. I haven't published it yet with someone who stayed past her 6 months and then flew actually from Merida to Mexico City, and then she was going to fly back to the United States because she had a place in Mexico City, and she was just here to get out of Mexico City for part of the year. And the INE caught her on the way back, and actually she ended up in a jail cell for I think like 24 or 48 hours while she got that straightened out. So ideally, don't travel a lot.
Yeah, and by the way, you know, right now more than ever, you know what I mean? Like, especially because of the political climate, you know, blah, blah, blah. Let's not get too detailed here. But I'm sure you guys already know what's going on. And so with that said, yeah, I mean, you know, Mexico is also being a little bit more stringent in some areas, in some places. Yeah. Well, only because the U.S. is doing the same thing. So it's just basically kind of
tit for tat.
Yeah. Because I've heard many, okay, so like when you have your residency and you come in through the airport, they have a special line for you. You can go in with the Mexicans. But now they're saying, no, you got to go in as a tourist in a long line. So, so they're making it a little extra difficult. And again, so it's just, if you can get your residency, you're good to go. For example, I got my permanent residency. I don't got to worry about residency ever. In fact, my next step is to get my citizenship, which I plan on doing, and getting my Mexican passport, which again, I plan on doing, and I'll definitely be showing you guys as I do that. For those interested.
I'll be watching that video, because that is definitely up there on the list of thinking for the future. Having another passport is, you can't go wrong. Except for, I would think that our friend Andrew over at Nomad Capitalist would warn that it might trigger some tax problems. Having to pay taxes because you're establishing more routes into Mexico, depending, like right now, I live less than 6 months in Mexico. I pay my taxes back to the United States. Very simple. Getting things like passports, I guess, makes things a little more tricky sometimes. But
how about this? As long as you're paying Uncle Sam, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
In Mexico, if you have something to worry about, someone just send you a letter or knock on your door. Hey, you got to pay X amount.
Yep. Yes, that's true. I get one of those nasty grams from Uncle Sam every year. It's just, I'm like, oh, another one.
The good thing about Uncle Sam is that if you don't pay him, don't worry, he'll come and pay you a visit out here, right?
Yeah, that's it. He'll come and find me. So yes, he will make things easy. So, well, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm really excited to make this video. We actually just made a video walking the opposite direction, and you'll find that over on Jose's channel. And I'm going to lose my voice here pretty soon. I think I'm starting to feel a little hoarse. But thank you guys for watching. I'm so glad to be here in Merida. Wish you guys were here. Check out some additional videos. They'll be between the two of us. Other folks in Merida, if they're available.